we've told you about George Floyd. We've told you about far too many police killings of African American men, unarmed black men all across the country, dozens of times. But it's not just the killings, it's also the abuse that happens throughout the country. And we've got another case that we want to talk to you about today. To help us do that, we brought on Sean Shaw. He was Democratic nominee for Florida Attorney General back in 2018, actually a historic nominee, first time ever that there was a black nominee for that post from the Democratic Party. His family's got broken a lot of traditions and led the way in Florida, and that could get relevant in this story. And he's also with the peopleoverprofits.org. Sean, there's a story of Ronald Davenport in Florida and how he was abused by the police, and I know you got involved in that. So, do you want to set that up for us? Who was Davenport and what happened to him?
Sure. It was a rally that I went to recently in Sarasota, Florida, and so I'm in Tampa, so it was not far for me to go, but they asked me to come down there because they wanted to lift up his story, and I was happy to do so. Mr. Davenport was not just the victim of police brutality once, he has been the victim of police brutality twice. And from what I understand, the first time he was a victim was some years ago, and he eventually settled with the police department on that occasion. And then the second occasion, which was more recent, he had an incident, interaction with the police, got injured, got beat up, went to the hospital, ended up in jail, and then got out. If you read the police report, which I read very quickly, it reads, pretty unbelievably, right? Mr. Davenport was immediately after he was stopped, immediately start cursing at officers, immediately got aggressive. And so the cops had no choice but to make sure that they could get him under control. And I happened to be at the rally with the public defender who had showed up at the rally, and he had the police report, and when we read it, we just shook our heads because it was just kind of what you would expect from a report of what we know is his injuries resulted from. From the report, you didn't know that he ended up in the hospital. From the report, you couldn't tell that he was injured at all. And so that's why the report was so unbelievable. And I was talking to Mr. Davenport before the rally, and what was so disturbing about his incident and how it relates to what's going on, George Floyd resonates with us because we saw the 8 minutes and 46 seconds of the knee on his neck. Eric Garner resonates with us because of the video. Ahmaud Arbery, Trayvon Martin, these resonate because we've got video. What about all the incidents throughout the dozens and decades of where there's no video, or where it's just an officer's word against an unarmed African American man, and who's gonna get the benefit of the doubt in that situation? And so while I'm glad the country, after seeing the George Floyd 8 minutes and 46 seconds, seems to be somewhat galvanized, we can't forget that this has been going on a long time, and not a lot of people have the video evidence. We got to remember that that's what we are marching for and protesting for. It's all that wretched history that this country has on this issue, and we got to do something about it.
For the audience, I need you to understand, Davenport's 63 years old. And so his family says he was dragged out of the car. What we do know for sure is he's got fractured ribs, lung damage, lumbar strain, popped blood vessels in his eyes, and abrasions throughout his body. And apparently, after they already had him down, they also kicked him several times.
And the report reads like an African American man who immediately got aggressive with the police. They had to restrain him lightly and then got him into custody. If you read the report versus the injuries that you just described, somebody is not telling the truth. And I'm gonna believe a medical report before I believe that police report.
Yeah, well, that's going to go to a core issue here in a sec. But one more important fact in the case that I want people to know. To be fair to the police, Ronald Davenport was in the middle of a very serious violation when they pulled him over. Wrong use of a left turn signal. Wow, I didn't know it was that serious. So and if you're wondering at home, why did they even bother to put that in the report? Because they then have to say resisting arrest.
Right.
But what was he resisting arrest for? The left turn signal thing. Sure. Well, you were gonna arrest him for wrong use of a left turn signal? You could arrest 3/4 of the country for that.
Well, it's we can't lose sight of what's important. White people don't get arrested for wrong use of left turns. Okay, yes. White people don't get arrested for having a $20 counterfeit bill. Like, we got to understand these underlying kind of implicit bias and prejudice that lead to these confrontations. You're not arresting a white person for being in their car and for using the wrong left turn signal. It doesn't happen. You use it when you think a black person is suspicious, and you only think that because you've got the implicit bias that all black people are criminals.
Look, you're the state's insurance consumer advocate. You're elected to the state legislature. You ran for attorney general. So I don't know if this is a controversial question that I got for you, but look, when we were kids, we were taught, oh, the police are always telling the truth and you have to respect them, etc. Now, having seen overwhelming evidence to the contrary, unless they can prove otherwise, I believe, especially in a situation where the cops are in trouble, I assume they are lying. Every time that we've covered a story of cops being questioned about something, they've lied. And they all lie in unison. That's what the thin blue line is about. It's not about a few bad apples. No, if there's a bad apple, thin blue line means we all fall in line and back the bad apples because they're not. The whole culture is wrong. They would have to present overwhelming video evidence for me to believe that the 63-year-old had the broken lungs coming to him. Otherwise, I think, just like I've seen 1,000 times over, the cops are lying.
No, in this case, I think you're exactly right. It's clear that someone's lying, either the medical report or the police report, and it's pretty obvious which one's lying. I think the broader question is certainly the veneer and the default kind of respect and privilege that we've given to police over the years is something that is eroding before our very eyes, probably rightfully so. And it's eroding not only because of what we're seeing, it's eroding because there's no transparency in the process. You don't know who these cops are that have excessive complaints. You don't know what the disciplinary thing is. You don't have any idea about the transparency. Oftentimes, police that have had dozens of complaints can be on the street and you don't know it, and they've gone through the appellate process and only got a slap on the wrist. That is why we need transparency and a federal database of all these things. But the veneer and the days of just automatically police getting that belief, I think, is eroding, rightfully so, before our eyes because of what we are seeing. And I as all black men, I said this at the rally, this is a burden that we bear in this country that's unique to us. All of us had the talk with our parents, uncles, older, whoever it is. I had the talk. The only difference is when my father had the talk with me, he had a 3-piece suit on and he was the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court. And he had to talk with me about how to act when police pulled you over, where to put your hands, what to say, where to look. And so it doesn't matter who your parents are, it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, it doesn't matter what you do, where you're from. It matters that you're a young black male or a black male, period. And all of us understand that it is, you get that pit in that knot in the pit of your stomach whenever you have any kind of interaction with police. And that's just something that all black men, it's just the way we have been brought up and the way that life has gone. And that's really what the focus is and what we need to get at, and everything else is a distraction.
When the Black Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has to tell his son how not to get murdered by the cops, we got a problem in America.
And that's a story that my white friends don't believe, and they find that hard to believe. And my black friends are like, yeah, what are you talking about? Every dad has that story. It's just how life is. You can't be getting pulled over and reaching for the glove box without saying you're doing it, unless you want to be putting your life in danger. If you're a black male, it's just the way of life.
Yeah, and in the case of Philando Castile, he was very clear and he said it, and they shot him anyway. Mm-hmm. And so, well, Sean, then let's talk about whether there's a sea change here with what happened with George Floyd and the reaction thereafter. And I know it's too early to tell, but for as long as America has been around, African American men and women have been saying we're being abused by the police, right? You get past slavery, everybody knows there's no question about it in the South during the Jim Crow era, but the reality is it was all over the country, including the North. And then even past civil rights, almost every black male has a story, but yet the country in unison said, no, we believe millions of you are all lying, all with the same story. We just don't believe you, we believe the police instead, because that's what we've been, I honestly think they were brainwashed to believe that. I think we were all brainwashed to believe that. But now it appears that that even a big portion of white America is saying, maybe they weren't lying. I've seen too many videos now where I can see it with my own eyes. So are you a little bit hopeful about that at this point, Sean?
A little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And I'll tell you why. The civil rights movement of the 60s was really dependent on the American public changing their mind. And a lot of that mind changing happened as a result of videos and photographic evidence of dogs and water hoses. And a lot of America didn't understand how protesters and Black Americans are being treated. Hopefully this George Floyd video is that sort of galvanizing thing, and America can't help but see 8 minutes, 46 seconds of that officer's knee on that brother's neck. You can't help but see that. You can't help but understand that there was a problem there.
All right, Sean Shaw, everybody check out the peopleoverprofits.org as well. And Sean, hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of you here on the Outbreaks.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.